All right, so we're going deep underground today. Literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
With Dostoevsky's notes from Underground.
Oh, yeah.
This book, it's narrated by this bitter, isolated guy living in 19th century St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
And he really doesn't hold anything back.
Oh, no.
So we've got excerpts straight from the book.
Yep.
And we've got some footnotes to kind of help us along the way with the historical context. But be warned.
Okay.
This is going to be a wild ride.
It is. You ready? I'm ready. What's so captivating about this book is that you're just thrown right into the mind of this totally alienated narrator. And he just dissects all his own misery and contradictions with this amazing blend of dark humor and philosophical insight. You know, it really makes you question what it means to be human.
Right from the start, he kind of throws down this gauntlet saying that consciousness is a disease. What do you make of that?
Well, it's a provocative statement.
No, for sure.
For him, consciousness is not this gift that elevates humanity.
Right.
It's actually like a burden that leads to inertia and self-sabotage.
Yeah.
He just feels this intense awareness of his flaws and his shortcomings, and it really paralyzes him. It prevents him from having a fulfilling life.
He even says that the more aware he is of like goodness and beauty, the deeper he sinks into his own mire. So it's like knowledge, instead of liberating him, is actually trapping him further.
Exactly. He's wrestling with all these existential questions about free will, meaning, and the purpose of life. And for him, consciousness leads to not enlightenment, but just like a heightened awareness of his own limitations and failings. It's a bleak outlook, but it really reflects like the anxieties of his time, this period of rapid social and intellectual change.
So how does that connect to his fascination with his own humiliation? He seems to find a strange pleasure in his own suffering.
Well, that gets to the heart of his self-destructive tendencies. You know, he's not only aware of his flaws, but he almost revels in them. So like he gets this perverse sense of satisfaction from proving to himself and the world that he's incapable of happiness or success.
It's like he's addicted to his own misery. He even talks about like finding a kind of accursed sweetness and knowing he's being bad is this masochism.
Well, it's certainly a form of self-sabotage. And this ties into this larger philosophical question that Dostoevsky's exploring. The nature of spite and its power over human behavior.
He actually argues that spite can be a stronger motivator than rational self-interest. It's almost like he's proud of being driven by this destructive force.
And this fascination with spite really reveals his deep resentment towards society and his own perceived inferiority. He just feels wronged by the world. And his spiteful actions are a way of lashing out, even if it ultimately harms him.
So we have this complex character. He's deeply conscious of his flaws. He embraces his own humiliation. He's fueled by spite. But then there's this other side to him where he yearns for something more. He talks about being drawn to the elevated and beautiful. And he escapes into these romanticized daydreams. That's so interesting.
This is one of the central contradictions that makes the underground man so fascinating. Despite all of his cynicism and self-loathing, he still clings to these idealized notions of love and beauty and heroism. It's like he can't fully embrace the darkness that he claims to love.
It makes you wonder, are these aspirations genuine? Or are they just another form of self-deception? Is he really capable of experiencing these elevated emotions? Or are they just fantasies to avoid confronting the reality of his situation?
That's the question that drives the narrative. And to really see how this tension plays out, we need to look at a specific episode that really encapsulates the underground man's social ineptitude. The disastrous dinner party.
The dinner party.
That he crashes.
This is where we see this desire for connection clash so spectacularly with his inability to actually form meaningful relationships.
He's so desperate to be seen and accepted by his former schoolmates. But he goes about it in all the wrong ways. He puts on this act of superiority, trying to impress them with his intellect and his wit. But it just comes across as arrogant and condescending.
And the more he tries to fit in, the more he alienates himself. He describes the whole experience as a torturous torture, which I think perfectly sums up his approach to social interaction.
It's painful, but also darkly comic. You can't help but cringe as he just stumbles from one awkward encounter to the next, revealing his insecurity and desperation with every word.
He compares himself to men of action, these seemingly simple and straightforward individuals who just navigate the world with ease. And it's clear he both envies and despises them. Because he sees them as unburdened by the overthinking that plagues him.
He creates this dichotomy. Between himself, this overthinking intellectual trapped in his head, and these normal people who just act. Without questioning. It's a way for him to justify his own isolation and inaction. But it also reveals this deep longing for a kind of authenticity that he feels unable to achieve.
Speaking of complicated relationships, we can't forget the narrator's encounter with Liza, this young woman forced into prostitution. This is where we see his twisted views on love and power play out in a really unsettling way.
His relationship with Liza is perhaps the most revealing aspect of his character. It really showcases his capacity for both tenderness and cruelty. His desire for connection intertwined with this need for control.
He pours out his heart to her, sharing his deepest fears and insecurities. But he also manipulates her, using her as a sounding board for his own misery. It's a deeply unhealthy dynamic.
It really is.
And it raises these questions about his capacity for empathy. Does he genuinely care for her? Or is she just another pawn in his self-absorbed drama? He even admits that for him, love always involves domination and control, which is a pretty disturbing outlook.
It is.
And it makes you question whether he's even capable of experiencing love in a healthy, reciprocal way.
This twisted view of love stems from his deep-seated insecurity and his fear of vulnerability. For him, love is not about mutual respect and shared joy. It's about asserting power over another person. It's a way to avoid the risks of genuine intimacy.
And Liza, she's not just a passive victim.
No, she's not.
She challenges him, calling him out on his hypocrisy and forcing him to confront the ugliness of his own behavior. She represents a glimmer of hope, a chance for him to break free from his self-destructive patterns.
But the question is, can he rise to the challenge? Can he overcome his own demons and allow himself to experience genuine connection?
Well, for that, I guess we're going to have to keep digging. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve even deeper into the complexities of this fascinating and frustrating character.
So when we left off, the underground man had just unleashed this torrent of self-loathing and cruelty onto Liza.
It was rough.
It was a truly shocking moment. And it left us wondering how she would react.
Like had he completely pushed her away? Destroyed any chance they had at a genuine connection? Seemed like it.
But what's so interesting is that Liza doesn't immediately run away. She sits there for a long moment, taking it all in. And this is where the power dynamic subtly shifts. You know, he's laid bare his soul. And by doing so, he's made himself incredibly vulnerable.
And I remember he even knocks on the screen to remind her that she's still there. Almost like he's seeking some kind of acknowledgement.
Exactly. He's expecting her to recoil in disgust. But her silence is unsettling. It's a challenge to his expectations. And instead of feeling remorse for his outburst, what does he do?
I know.
He watches her through a crack in the screen. Taking this perverse pleasure.
I know. It's so messed up.
In her discomfort.
He says it's unbearably difficult for me that she was there.
Right.
As though, like, her presence is a threat.
Exactly.
To his carefully constructed world.
He wants her to validate his self-loathing, to confirm his belief that he's unworthy of love and connection. But Liza, in her quiet dignity, refuses to play that role.
And then he tries to give her money.
Yes.
10 rubles, which is a lot for him.
Right. It's an attempt to buy her off.
Yeah.
To erase the emotional intimacy they've shared.
Yeah.
And reduce their encounter to a simple transaction. But Liza refuses to take the money.
She won't let him diminish their connection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's demanding that he see her as a human being.
Totally.
Not just an object of pity.
Yeah.
Or a receptacle for his emotional baggage.
And her refusal throws him completely off balance.
He loses control.
Yeah.
He throws the money on the floor.
Yeah.
He threatens her.
Yeah.
If she doesn't leave, it's a display of both weakness and aggression.
Yeah.
This desperate flailing of a man who can't handle genuine human connection.
And her response is so powerful.
Yes.
She picks up the money, puts it on the table.
Right.
And leaves without a word.
It's a quiet act of defiance.
Yeah.
She refuses to be drawn into his drama.
Yeah.
To let his cruelty define her.
Right.
By walking away, she reclaims her own power.
Totally.
And leaves him to confront the consequences of his actions.
I bet he felt pretty pathetic.
He's achieved his desired isolation, but there's no sense of triumph.
Right.
You know, by pushing away the one person who showed him genuine compassion.
Right.
He's exposed the hollowness of his existence.
Yeah, he's left with nothing.
He's left with nothing.
But his own bitter thoughts and the crushing weight of his self-imposed solitude.
It's almost as if this encounter forces him to take a hard look at himself, to question the validity of his whole underground philosophy.
He starts to acknowledge that maybe he's been wrong about everything and that his pursuit of intellectual superiority has left him emotionally bankrupt.
Right.
He even admits to feeling ashamed of writing these notes.
Yeah.
Almost like he's recognizing the futility of his self-absorbed ramblings.
But old habits die hard.
Right.
Even after this profound experience with Liza.
Yeah.
He still can't seem to escape his need for control and his tendency to push people away.
And we see this play out.
We see this in his ongoing relationship with Apollon, his servant.
Oh, Apollon.
Even though he hates Apollon, he also depends on him.
Right, it's twisted.
It's this twisted, codependent dynamic that highlights his inability to function in a healthy reciprocal relationship.
I remember he goes on this hilarious rant about Apollon's lisp. And his pomposity and his meticulously groomed hair.
Oh, he hates it.
He hates it.
He takes such pleasure in finding fault with everything.
Apollon does.
Their interactions are so funny.
They are. They're full of this darkly comic tension.
Yeah.
The narrator is constantly trying to assert his dominance, to belittle Apollon, to remind him of his inferior position. But Apollon, with his stoic indifference and infuriatingly smug smile, refuses to be broken.
It's almost like Apollon represents those men of action that he both envies and despises.
Right. He just does his job without all the overthinking and emotional turmoil that plagues the narrator.
And that just drives him crazy.
It infuriates him because it undermines his carefully constructed worldview.
Yeah.
Like, if Apollon can find contentment in simply doing his duty, what does that say about the narrator's own tortured existence?
Right. Apollon's like a mirror.
Exactly.
Reflecting back all the narrator's insecurities and failings.
He's a constant reminder that the narrator's intellectual games and self-imposed isolation haven't brought him any closer to happiness or fulfillment.
But it's not all doom and gloom.
No.
There are moments of genuine humor.
Oh, yeah.
Like when he tries to force Apollon to beg for his salary.
Oh, it's so ridiculous.
So ridiculous.
But oddly endearing.
That's so Fyodor.
It really reveals the absurdity of his need for control.
Right.
And it reminds us that beneath all his intellectual posturing, he's still a deeply flawed and often quite pathetic human being.
So we have this interplay of resentment. And dependence, and even a grudging respect between him and his servant.
It's a dysfunctional relationship, but it's also one of the few connections he has in his isolated world. It speaks to that fundamental human need for belonging, recognition, even if it's expressed in the most twisted and dysfunctional ways.
But the question remains, can the underground man break free? From these destructive patterns? Can he find a way to connect with others in a meaningful way? Or is he doomed to remain trapped in his self-imposed underground?
To understand that.
Well, to understand that, we need to look back at his past to the experiences that shaped him into the man he is today. And for that, we have to go back to his school days.
Oh, school days. Okay.
A time of intense social awkwardness, rivalry, and a whole lot of teenage angst.
School days, huh?
Yeah.
I think we can all relate to those awkward years of trying to fit in and figure out who we are. But for the underground man, it sounds like school was more of a...
It was definitely a formative period for him. But in kind of a negative way. He describes himself as this... orphaned, browbeaten, pensive boy, already feeling isolated and different from his peers.
And he saw the other boys as vulgar and stupid, obsessed with trivial things.
Right. So right from the start, he sets himself apart, both intellectually and emotionally. He retreats into books and his own thoughts. Creating this barrier between himself and the world.
And the sense of intellectual superiority just fuels his isolation.
Yeah, he looks down on his classmates. But he also desperately craves their acceptance.
It's like a recipe for disaster. Like those teen movies where the nerd wants to date the cheerleader.
Exactly.
But he's too awkward.
And we see this play out in his attempts to connect with other boys. He mentions trying to befriend one boy. But he ends up dominating him.
Oh, so even back then, he had to be in control.
He can't allow himself to be vulnerable. Or to experience genuine connection. He has to be in control. Even if it means destroying the relationship.
And then there's this rivalry with Zverkov.
Zverkov.
He's this wealthy, arrogant officer who just seems to embody everything.
Zverkov's like the ultimate symbol of normalcy and social success. Everything the underground man feels he's not.
He even describes Zverkov's face as...
He says, it's handsome but silly. Revealing both his envy and his disdain.
And then Zverkov announces that he's leaving. And the other boys decide to throw him this farewell dinner. Which, of course, the underground man is not invited to.
Of course not.
It's like a painful reminder of his outsider status.
He longs to be part of this inner circle. But he's convinced that he's fundamentally different, that he'll never truly belong.
But he can't just let it go.
No, he can't.
He hears about the dinner. And he decides to crash it.
This is where his self-destructive impulses really take over.
It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion.
It is.
You know it's going to be bad.
He knows he's not wanted. He knows he's likely to humiliate himself. But he just can't resist the urge to try and force his way in.
And things go horribly wrong.
They do.
As expected.
He gets drunk. He insults everyone. And ends up making a complete fool of himself.
He even challenges one of the boys to a duel.
Oh, yes.
Which is just met with laughter.
Ridicule.
And ridicule.
It's so cringeworthy.
Oh, my gosh. It's so hard to read.
You just want to reach into the book and shake him.
I know.
And say, stop. Stop digging yourself deeper.
But that's the tragedy of the underground man.
It is.
He's driven by these forces he can't control.
He wants to connect.
Yeah.
He wants to be loved.
Right.
He wants to be accepted.
Yeah.
But his own insecurities and self-loathing sabotage every attempt.
And then to top it off, He demands that another boy lend him money?
Yeah.
So he can follow Zverkov and his friends?
Yeah, to the brothel.
To brothel.
It's a desperate attempt.
That's so desperate.
To keep up appearances.
Yeah.
To prove that he belongs.
Even if it means spending money he doesn't have.
Right.
Going somewhere he doesn't want to be.
Exactly.
And of course it ends in disaster.
He's ignored, ridiculed, ultimately left alone.
More alienated than ever.
This experience at the brothel is a turning point for him.
Okay.
It really solidifies his belief that he's fundamentally different from other people, that he's destined to live in this underground world of isolation and alienation.
So he retreats further into himself, convinced that genuine connection is impossible.
But even in his isolation, he can't escape that longing for something more.
He still wants to connect.
He continues to dream of love and beauty and heroism, even as he mocks those aspirations.
As vulgar and romantic.
Exactly. He's trapped in this paradox, this constant tension.
Between his head and his heart.
Yes, between his cynical intellect and his yearning heart.
And it's this tension that makes him so compelling to read about.
Even though he's often deeply unlikable.
Totally.
He's flawed, he's contradictory, he's self-destructive.
Right.
But there's also this spark of humanity in him.
Yeah.
This glimmer of hope that maybe someday he'll find a way out of his self-imposed prison.
It's like he's holding up a mirror.
Exactly.
To all of us.
Showing us the dark underbelly of the human experience.
The parts of ourselves.
The parts of ourselves that we try to hide or deny.
And by exposing those raw, uncomfortable emotions, Dostoevsky forces us to confront.
Our own inner underground man.
Yeah.
To acknowledge the complexity and the messiness of being human.
Yeah. It's not a comfortable read.
No.
But it's an important one.
It is.
And I think that's what makes...
And that's what makes Dave...
this deep dive...
so fascinating.
This is so fascinating.
It's not just about...
understanding...
character in a book.
A character in a book.
It's about... understanding ourselves. Understanding ourselves. We all have those notes from underground.
We do.
Those secret thoughts and desires.
Dark impulses.
That we keep hidden from the world.
Yeah. And by exploring them, even if it's uncomfortable.
Even if it's scary, we can maybe find a way to connect with others in a more genuine and meaningful way.
So to our listener out there, I encourage you to seek out the full book notes from Underground.
It's a powerful read.
It's not an easy read.
No.
But it will stay with you.
It will.
And who knows? Maybe you'll find yourself recognizing a little bit of the underground man in your own heart.
And remember, there's no shame in those darker impulses.
Right.
It's what we do with them that matters.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes, thank you.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
And keep those notes from Underground flowing.
Absolutely.